Good evening, and welcome to our show, Brookfield Public Advocate. I'm your host, Bruce Senek. As frequent viewers know, as we wrap up our shows, I welcome comments about our show and ask what issues or topics you'd like to see. Well, tonight's show topic originated from a longtime viewer. We're all familiar with NBC's long-running show, Law & Order, SVU. While not in front of a camera, our guest, or maybe she is, our guest this evening can tell us some real-life cases and offer ideas and things to look for in protecting our children. Our special guest this evening is Rachel Halas, a detective in the Special Victims Unit of the Danbury Police Department. Rachel, thank you for coming and welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me, Bruce.
Rachel, would you please tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am a detective with the Danbury Police Department. I've been an officer with Danbury for the past 17 years. The past 12 years I've been assigned to the Special Victims Unit. In the unit, our primary responsibility is the investigation of child abuse. That ranges from physical abuse, sexual abuse, untimely deaths of children. Obviously, any death of a child is untimely. But we are tasked with the responsibility of investigating accidental death, homicide, and SIDS deaths of children. We also maintain the sex offender registry, and we also have recently taken on the responsibility of investigating adult sexual offenses as well as children.
Okay. Now, before I get into, because I have a series of questions that I want to go through with you, but before we start, I do just have to ask you if you are a fan of Law & Order SVU.
I get that question quite a bit, actually. I think I might have seen maybe about 20 seconds of one episode, and it drove me crazy. It's just not a true depiction of what we do. There are other shows on television that I actually enjoy more. Usually the real true crime shows, like The First 48 Hours, or documentaries about true crime cases. I find that a little more enjoyable. Yeah, SVU, I don't think I've ever seen more than 20 seconds. I mean, it's fantastic, and it's Hollywood, but it's not a true depiction of what we do.
Okay. Would you tell our viewers what first interested you in being an officer of the law?
Sure. Well, I grew up in a household. My father was a state police officer with Connecticut, and from an early age, I was always interested in his job and really investigations. And for a short time, he did some photography, crime scene photography, and I found that really interesting. And then in high school and in college, I realized that this was a calling for me. This is something I truly wanted to do and devote my life to. I didn't really know if I wanted to go federal or local. And I was at WestCon in the Justice and Law Administration program. I decided to interview with a federal agency, which I ended up realizing that wasn't going to be the place for me. I took the Danbury test and did pretty well, and realized that through the interview process and the process of learning about the local PD, that's where I would probably get a real understanding of the day-to-day in law enforcement and investigations, and that I'd probably see more with the local PD, which I believe has been the case. So I was hired by the city of Danbury in my senior year of college, and in 1996, and I've been here ever since.
Okay. Now, I would think I have in financial services, I have some clients that are officers, but I would think there might be some special training. None of my clients that I'm aware of, at least, are in SVU. Mm-hmm. Is there some special training to be in SVU that other officers maybe don't go through?
Yes, there is. There's actually, I had to become a detective first, which is a promotion. So that's a tested position. And once I became a detective, I was actually assigned to my unit by the mayor and the chief of police at the time. And at the time, it was just myself and another detective and one supervisor in the unit. We've grown quite a bit since then. We're now a 5-person unit, 4 working detectives and a supervisor. But we go through a lot of training. We go through detective school. There is something called detective school. It's basically just an overall a learning school about investigations and the law, and then we get a little more specialized in regards to sexual offenses, physical abuse of children, untimely deaths. I've been through numerous trainings in regards to interviewing people, interview and interrogation, evidence detection, collection, various classes and conferences on the investigation of child abuse. Yeah, so it's ongoing. It never really ends.
Yeah. Well, it's a little off subject maybe, but in gathering evidence is. I don't know if you're a fan of CSI. Maybe I'm going to try to get you on some police type of show. Do you know, is that sort of accurate, the way they depict gathering evidence from your experience? Or is that
I mean, some of it is. I think some of it, again, is Hollywood, but we have a CSI unit. I am not an evidence technician, but we have a whole unit of people who are evidence technicians. So, when I have a scene, a crime scene, I am responsible for hopefully identifying possible areas where we might find evidence, whether it's blood or semen or DNA, fingerprints. It could be anything really. It could be bedding. It could be a pillowcase. It could be photographs, computers. I would work in concert with CSI, and they are responsible for securing that evidence and storing it. And so that it could be presented in court, and aid us in the investigation.
Now you mentioned your unit size, I think, is 5. What about Danbury? Is a larger city in our area here. What about smaller towns? Do they have special victims units? And if not, do they reach out to Danbury, or if they're maybe in the eastern part of the state, do they reach out to larger cities that might have these special units?
They could. Primarily when a crime occurs within your town, it's your jurisdiction. So say, if a significant sexual assault happened in, Brookfield, I know it's a smaller department, but they have detectives there who are skilled and able to investigate a wide variety of crimes. We're just fortunate in Danbury that we have a larger department. We have specialized units where we're able to concentrate on a specific crime or a specific variety of crimes, where sometimes with the smaller departments they don't have that ability, but they're just as capable. And if they do need help, and there are times when we need help in Danbury where we may reach out, say, to the FBI or another organization that may have the tools that could help us in our investigation, whether it be the Connecticut State Police, the FBI, the DEA, the U.S. Marshals Service. We use all of those agencies to help us in our investigations if it's, what it's called for.
Yeah, okay. What would be some of the warning signs that adults, whether it be parents, family members, teachers, neighbors, be on the lookout for if they do suspect a child is being abused?
I think the biggest thing is if you have a feeling, or if you have a hunch, or there's something telling you that something is not right, you really do need to investigate that as a parent or as an adult. Over the past 12 years, I have to say, the majority of people who come in and who talk to us will say, I knew something wasn't right. And they had that instinct, they had that inner voice telling them that something wasn't right. And sometimes they chose to ignore that and ended up regretting that. Right. And other times, people will investigate it. They'll ask questions, they'll sit down with the child and talk to them and have a conversation and try to find out what's going on. I think it's our duty to do that as parents or as caregivers, that if you have that feeling or you suspect something may be going on, you really do need to follow that intuition and follow that up.
Follow your gut.
Follow your gut.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if people do have suspicions, what should they do? How do they go about reporting it?
Okay. Well, it really does depend on the situation. You know, it depends on the age of the child. You know, in Danbury, you know, we investigate on average about 100 cases of sexual assaults a year. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Child sexual abuse is an epidemic in the world. It's not going away. It's always been here. I think victims are more able or ready to report today than they were decades ago. But you know, it depends on the age of the child. But I think if you do have a feeling that something is going on, then you need to call either your local DCF office. DCF is the Department of Children and Families. They have a 1-800 number where you can make an anonymous call and you are protected. Nobody, you know, people are always afraid, what if I say something and it's not true? Well, you know, we get called out to many cases where we're not able to show that something has happened, and nobody's arrested for that. You know, if you have a concern that a child is being abused, we have a really good system of trying to ferret out if it actually did occur or not occur. And we're not in the business of arresting people if they shouldn't be arrested. That's not something that we're interested in doing. So we really do our best job to try to find evidence to show that it actually did or didn't happen, you know.
Well, you touch on something that I think is in the mindset of a lot of people, because as you mentioned, you know, people can, I guess, be protected, but in today's litigious society, making an accusation can really result in for the person making it, kind of sometimes be a financial trap in terms of whether it be slander or libel suits, and a lot of people, you know, quote, just don't want to get involved. So there is protection then for people that you know, might, you know, and I'm not just saying the person that wants to get back at somebody,
Sure.
but you know, what they feel is a real legitimate thing. There is some protection for them then.
There is. There's actually, you know, and it's funny because I'm looking back over my career in investigating child abuse. It's actually a rare thing to have a false report. I think that's more, you know, that's a fear that people have, and I think it's over-reported, or it's an unrealistic fear. It's actually children usually do not make false accusations. That's actually pretty rare,
Yeah.
especially for younger kids. If children are saying something, it's usually true, and especially if it's about somebody that's close to them and somebody they have a relationship with. You know, in my career, I can probably think back to maybe less than, you know, 5 cases where we felt that it was probably maybe a custodial dispute or something like that, where the child was pressured to make some kind of allegation that wasn't true. It's probably less than that. It's rare. But people who make false reports, if there's evidence that somebody has made a false report and they did that knowing it was a false report, they will be held liable, and they could be arrested for that. If you make a report and you're just concerned, and you have these concerns and you want to investigate it, there is no malice there, you know.
Right.
So if we cannot show that you did something intentionally to injure somebody's reputation, then you'll be fine.
Well, you mentioned this 800 number.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I guess that you know, you can always call from a phone booth, if you can even find phone booths today.
Yeah, right.
or maybe block your number, or
sure.
something. Although, you know, with technology, we just recently did a show with a computer and a technology person. It's, you know, to me amazing what you know, you can find out and kind of work back.
Yes.
I'm just wondering. My guess, and I could be wrong, that somehow you could probably find out who actually made the call. Now, I'm not suggesting the person's making the call for malicious reasons, but then the person being accused, can they somehow or other find out, I don't know, through the legal system, and then kind of sort of retaliate?
They could. Does it happen? It's rare. I mean, in all of our cases, Bruce, you know, looking back, you know, most people who report choose not to be anonymous. But you know, many do, and they are anonymous. You know, if the case does go criminal, and it leads us to getting statements from people and bringing them in as witnesses, obviously, you know, they could be subpoenaed to testify in a court of law. But you know, that's really something that people shouldn't worry about. What they should worry about, what they should focus on, if they have concerns, that's the first thing that needs to be addressed. And I think it's all our duty that if we feel that a child, you know, who's helpless and can't help themselves, if they're in a situation where they're being injured or assaulted, that definitely needs to be reported.
Err on the side of caution for the child's benefit.
Absolutely.
You know,
always err on the side of safety.
Now, when we were talking, you know, about doing the show, you'd mentioned one particular case, but is there maybe, you know, this particular case that you might want to discuss, or maybe even another one or two that you'd like to kind of share with our audience that you know, has special meaning to you?
Sure, sure. You know, one case that stands out in my mind, and you know, my friend, my supervisor, Mark Williams, and I worked on this case. He's no longer in my unit. He works in another unit, a specialized unit now. But it was the murder of a 13-year-old girl. Her name was Christina Long, back in 2002. She was a Danbury girl. She had just turned 13 the month before, and our unit got a report of her being missing from the Danbury Fair Mall. I guess her aunt would take her to the mall on Friday nights and then pick her up, you know, drop her off to meet friends, and then after a few hours she'd return and pick her up.
Right.
Well, Christina never arrived, and we received the call. And pretty typical for cases that we have, we get lots of reports of missing kids, and most of them turn up just fine. But, you know, what happened was on Friday night, as we went out to the home, we started talking, you know, to the aunt and to other family members. At the time that this happened, MySpace was very popular. Now it's Facebook, but at the time it was MySpace. So we were able to get into her computer and look at her, you know, recent posts and who she was talking to. And we did develop some information. We actually worked, our agency, we worked also with some other local police departments and the FBI on this. We realized in early Saturday that she had met up with an older man. His name is Saul Dos Reis, and he, I believe at the time, was 25 years old. They had been conversing online. And what we found out during the investigation was that she actually had gone out with him the week before, unbeknownst to her aunt who had custody of her. And she had met up with him. They went out, and I guess they had some sexual contact the week before, and then they made this second date. And then she told her aunt she was going to the mall, and what happened was Saul met her there, picked her up, and what he did was he assaulted her in the car in the Danbury Fair Mall parking lot. He ended up murdering her in the vehicle, and then driving her body down to Greenwich and dumping her in a ravine down there. So we found her on Sunday morning, you know, and that was a shocking case because, you know, like I said, we get these cases of these missing kids in, and we all think, well, they're upset, they ran away from home, you know, they'll be back. And, you know, we ever since that case, we don't look at those cases quite the same, you know. And, you know, it's a learning tool for a lot of people because the lesson from that is, you know, nobody knew that this 13-year-old girl was talking to this 25-year-old guy online.
Right.
And she's a child, you know, and this man was a predator. And her aunt, who was, you know, a wonderful lady and really was there for this child, you know, didn't know about the MySpace and the connection between her and Saul. So, you know, it was a very sad case. And, you know, as parents, I mean, technology since 2002, now we have Facebook and the cell phones and the texting and all that. You know, I think it's important for caregivers and adults and parents to know what is going on in your children's lives, you know, and who they're talking to and who they're going out with and where they're going, and to make it your business, you know.
Be a parent, not a friend.
Be a parent and not a friend. And, you know, I just got a call in my office the other day about some man who found a marijuana pipe in his kid's backpack. And he was worried about how he should approach it with his daughter. And the daughter's 14. And I said, well, he's like, I don't want to be the bad guy. And I said, well, you're not the bad guy, you're the parent. You know, you're not her friend.
Right.
You know, you have to let them know what your expectations and your rules are in the home. And I think sometimes some parents will lose sight of that. And bad things can happen, unfortunately, you know, to kids who are out there and who aren't mature and who get into situations they don't know how to handle.
Yeah.
You know, but that was a sad case, and that really, you know, it really hit home for all of us who have kids, and it shocked us that, you know, she was actually murdered. But that's, you know, that's a typical, you know, case that we hear about in the media where these kids go missing. They meet up with somebody older, and there's a lot of these guys online, you know, looking for kids. So we have to be diligent as parents and caretakers and know what our kids are doing.
You mentioned, I guess you were able to track him down because of the conversation on the computer.
Correct.
Was that something that you were able to find out really right away? And was this something you were able, if you don't mind my asking, did you pick him up like within a couple of days or something? Or
we actually, my supervisor at the time, Mark Williams, he was really paramount to really solving the case, because he actually met with Saul and interviewed him while the rest of us were kind of partnered up with the FBI and hitting different locations looking for Christina. So he found Saul and he sat down and he interviewed him, and really it was through the interview process that Mark was able to get a confession from this guy.
Really? And
that's what solved it. It was a good interview. You know, it was following up leads, you know, and really sometimes just getting lucky, you know, that this guy was able to tell us what he did with Christina, and we were able to find her. But yes, the technology is an important piece today. You know, we use search warrants quite a bit in regards to cell phones, text messages, computers, and all that. That's a big piece of our, you know, toolbox that we use, you know, to solve cases and to help us, you know, get these cases to figure it out.
Well, we're getting towards the end of the show. Is there one last thing you'd like to leave with our viewers?
I would just like, you know, I know it's such a huge subject, but I just, you know, I think it's important for people to talk to their children and have an open conversation about the dangers that are out there. You know, and I have 3 young children, and I talk to my kids on a regular basis, and I know it's not something that makes us feel warm and happy, but I think it's important that we give our kids the skill set and the tools to understand certain dangers, and that if something is going on, that we need to make sure that they know they should report it right away, and not wait.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks. We're going to wrap up our show now. Again, I'd like to thank tonight's special guest, Detective Rachel Halas from the Danbury Police Department Special Victims Unit. I want to remind our viewers that our show airs on Charter Channel 21 on Mondays at 4:30 and Thursdays at 7 p.m. And we'd love to hear from you. If you have some comments on this show or prior shows, or ideas or suggestions for future shows, please contact us, reach out to us at brookfieldpublicadvocate@yahoo.com. Again, thanks to our guest, Rachel. Appreciate your coming on and giving this important information. And again, thanks for watching, and good night.